I get to walk over to the other side of the set where Frankie, Corrado, and Bryan are hanging out. We're going to keep talking about the Leafs. People can't accuse us of talking about the Leafs too much. It was the only game on the night.
Hayes is here. He wasn't at the arena.
Okay, let's talk about that. So the Leafs finally win one at home. Do you feel like this is just going to become a thing? You'll never get to go back to Scotiabank Arena again?
Yeah, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I'm completely screwed when it comes to getting in that building. Like, if the Leafs lose Game 7, then I'm sure all will be forgotten.
Right.
Naturally, people will look at the team and say,
Sure.
maybe you should have gotten over the top.
Exactly.
But if they beat the Bruins and then play Florida, Game 3, I'm in big trouble. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get into that building. And I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
You're always welcome here.
I'm always welcome here. I
You're
appreciate
absolutely
that.
always welcome. Is this, if you're learning lessons, and the Leafs talked about learning lessons from past playoff losses, was the performance on Thursday night in Game 6 a culmination of all those lessons that they learned?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can go back to Game 4, actually. After Game 4, Sheldon Keefe speaking with the media. I was in the room when I was allowed in the building. I was down there in the room watching Sheldon Keefe. He looked and sounded defeated, but he was asked, now that your back is up against the wall, will you change your style, right? Will you start to gamble? Will you start to seek out goals and cheat a little bit? And he said, absolutely not. We're not going to do that. We are going to stick to our game plan. I think that was the original lesson coming to fruition, where in the past, maybe the Leafs would have taken on that identity. We got to try to do something crazy here. They believed in their game plan. They didn't think they were actually playing as poorly as the fans maybe did or the media did.
Right.
And I think those lessons, which they've been talking about for years, at times can be really, really ridiculous to hear and tough to hear if you're a fan.
Fatiguing.
It's very fatiguing. It's been mocked at times. Like, it's always lessons and lessons and lessons. But I think we saw that Game 5, Game 6. It's a low-event game. They didn't panic. They waited for their opportunities. A lot of credit to the Leafs in them actually putting forth some of those lessons tonight.
Listen, it was always going to be an uphill battle, but you can see when this team plays at 5-on-5, this is very much a series that they are in control of right now. And you talk about pressure, like the pressure for the Boston Bruins is going to lie with the fact that Toronto at 5-on-5, they're dictating the play right now. Boston can't get to the middle of the ice. The things that we talked about early on in the series with the Leafs, where it seemed like Boston was doing a good job keeping the Leafs to the outside, they couldn't get to the front of the net. The Leafs have totally flipped the script. And if this series, Game 7, is played at 5-on-5, you have to think that the Bruins still don't have an answer for it, or else they would have had the answer the last 2 games.
Well, the Leafs don't want to play on the man advantage because they went 0 for 3 again tonight.
Just
Right?
decline
If they
it.
could decline it, they probably would go
We will
into Game
decline
7.
the penalty.
Yeah.
We will decline the penalty. So when we look, I'm always looking for the TSN turning point because I just love saying TSN turning point. And the TSN turning point in this series was Joseph Woll.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, look at what happened tonight. Look what happened a couple of nights ago. I mean, this kid, and that's what he is. He's still technically a rookie in the eyes of the NHL. I know he came up last year at the end of the season. Sheldon Keefe said after the game tonight, and he's right. He liked the way he played when he came into the series against Florida last year. But this guy has had a really roller coaster season because of that injury. Post-injury, he returned, never looked like himself. And naturally, they went to Samsonov. But Samsonov opened the door, and I think the Bruins probably opened that door for them as well. And Joseph Woll has been phenomenal. And you look at the way he closed Game 5, right, with that stop on Frederick at the end of the 3rd period, the stop on Coyle into overtime. Tonight, the same thing. It was a low-event game early. And I think that's even more challenging for goalies, Frankie. The fact that there was no test in the first period. He could have played without a helmet on in the first period. That could allow you to maybe lose your edge a little bit. He was incredible tonight, and he got better and better as the night went on.
His whole demeanor now with this whole situation, he looks like he's having fun with it, but he looks comfortable, and now the team looks comfortable. They look more comfortable now than they did with Samsonov in the net, and that goes a long way. And if all things were equal heading into the playoffs, Woll would have been the starter. But it seemed like down the stretch, he was letting in the first shot of the game, he was letting in leaky goals, and Samsonov was playing better. And it maybe would have been one more game too much for Samsonov in the series. You maybe want to go to Woll sooner, but you got there now. And you got to the Game 7. And now this is the goaltender that's playing well. And let me ask you this. When was the last time the Leafs had a goalie in a series going toe-to-toe with the better goalie? You know, like did Samsonov, I guess, last year with Vasilevsky, that was more Vasilevsky not playing well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like this is different. It feels different because Woll is actually outplaying Swayman in a way because his team is winning now.
Exactly. I think that's what's magnified here, Jay, is the fact that these are still low-scoring games, right? These two games mirrored each other. They were both 2-1. This one was in regulation. Again, the Leafs can't get anything going on the power play, and that's significant. That's when really the goaltender is the one position, we say this all the time, that can dictate what's going to happen. If they win 5-4, they still get the win. But more of the accolades are going to go to the players, maybe the special teams, maybe the coach. When you win 2-1, 2-1, with your backs up against the wall, the number one guy is clearly the guy in net, and that's Joseph Woll.
It's incredible. I think back to Game 2. Austin Matthews scores that go-ahead goal. It's like his signature moment. Hasn't played. We can't even really talk about him. It's so mysterious. Willie comes in, just absolutely takes over this game. Would you describe this as his signature game as a Toronto Maple Leafs so far?
Absolutely. I mean, Willie's been a playoff performer like throughout his career. He's had an ample opportunity like the rest of them, right? Like the core three was Matthews, Marner, Nylander when they first arrived. They've been there all 8 years, right? Tavares has now been here for 6. Riley's been here for 8. But the guys who played tonight with Matthews out, Riley, Marner, Nylander. Those are the 3 guys who have been here collectively through the 8 years. And it's taken them all a while to get these opportunities and really show up and put their team on their back. That's what Willie did tonight. Like, we're watching this first goal. That takes a lot of courage to make plays at your own blue line in a tied game.
He's messed up that play in the past
Countless
against the
times this year.
Bruins. And Trent Frederick went in during the regular season and scored a breakaway goal.
And he creates, obviously, not only did he score on this breakaway, which is a brilliant one, but it again is magnified because Domi was in alone, couldn't score earlier in the period. Tavares was in alone earlier in the period, couldn't score. Willie gets it on his stick, and you could feel it. He was going to put it in the back of the net. He was unbelievable tonight.
Go back to other playoff series the Leafs have played, and more specifically, ones the Leafs have lost. They've had that moment. They've had that chance. The one that Domi had, the one that Tavares had, ultimately the one that Nylander scores on, and they haven't capitalized. And then it's the other team that goes down the wing, sends a floater on net, goes in the top shelf, and it's like, that's the game-changing moment. The Leafs got the game-changing moment because one of their game breakers came through, William Nylander. And if you are regular in this series, if you're just a guy out there, there's no offense available to you. Like, it's very difficult. The Leafs blocked 27 shots tonight. Boston Bruins, as much as they haven't found the offense, they still make it difficult for you, right? So if you are regular, there's no offense available to you. William Nylander is not regular. He is a step above the star players right now. David Pastrnak, he looks regular right now.
That's his guy, too, right? Willie and Pasta, they grew up together.
And think of this is, you go into a playoff series, sometimes the coach is going to write up, this is the player on the other team you need to be better than. Right now, Nylander is better than Pastrnak.
And it needs to be said, the play by Matthew Nyes in the neutral zone to get Nylander the puck for that second goal, terrific
Matthew Nyes, it feels like he's realized how big he is.
Yeah.
Like when he has, when he has
Yeah.
a little bit of dog in his game and he's playing physical, like he's matured a lot. Like there's a couple plays too watching Matthew Nyes where he may have tried to carry a puck, overhandle a puck, turn it over. He's like, you know what? I'm actually a big body. It's a chip and chase situation, and I'm going to go finish. And that's added an element to their game that they needed.
Well, and I think Nyes and Woll, what they've done here is they can look back on their experience from a year ago. Remember, Matthew Nyes was a college player a year ago, and there was a lot of debate. Will he come out? Will they sign him? Will they play him? Should he play? They played him. He played really well against Tampa. He ends up getting hurt against Florida. But I think he's carrying that over this year. The same thing with Woll. Woll got in against Florida. He can kind of drive off that. He's had playoff experience. I think that goes a long way. And I think that paid dividends tonight.
So, last question. It seems like the answer might be obvious, but maybe not. Who's under more pressure Saturday night?
Okay, this is a total cop-out, but I have a micro-macro. Okay, on a micro level, it's Boston, absolutely, because they're facing history here. Blowing a 3-1 lead last year against Florida. They do it again tonight. I don't believe it's happened in NHL history. I'm not sure it's happened in baseball history, NBA history, and you know that market. Like, they will turn on their own. They have championship pedigree, championship expectations. Boston will be freaking. And Jim Montgomery's already showing it. He looks like he's facing the pressure. That team is going to have it on a micro level. But for the Leafs, here we go again. Game 7 in Boston, just like in 19, just like in 18, just like in 13. This team hasn't won a Game 7 since 04, like you referenced. So even when they beat Tampa last year, that was in Game 6. Like, they beat Tampa in Game 6. So this is uncharted territory for them as well. I think it leans Boston by like 51-49 in terms of the percentage because they're on home ice, but it's real close to a coin flip.
I'm going to say Boston, not as much based on the fact that it's on home ice, but the fact that they've had 2 opportunities to close it out and now that's going to be really frustrating for them. But think about where both these teams are at. For Toronto, they're getting on a plane. It's happy. It's lively. There's a lot of chatter. Very different in Boston. It's frustrating because they've had opportunities and they haven't been able to do it, and that lies within the game because the Leafs are frustrating them with the way that they're playing, and it doesn't look like they have an answer for it at 5-on-5. It's two very different feelings, so I think the frustration is going to lead to the pressure more for the Bruins than it is for the Leafs.
Bryan, you host a very popular radio show here in the Toronto market on TSN Radio, and I understand you and Jeff O'Neill and Jamie McLennan, your co-hosts, were discussing what it's like to sit here in the side seats, and I think we have that clip for you now.
Jay will be over there, which means I have to suck in my boiler in those seats. The other night, I couldn't breathe. I was sitting there with Frank, and I'm like, my buttons are going to pop right off my shirt.
Yeah.
Because
J seats?
in the J
Well,
seats.
because they're low.
Yeah, they're low
And you
seats,
guys
and I
are
got
tall,
big
and-
legs.
yeah, and you're
like
leaning
long
back.
legs.
I
Dude,
saw
I
that
sat in the
too.
J seats, and it was kind of somewhere around the COVID thing, and I had, because all I could wear in that day was sweatpants, like gray, giant.
Why was that the only
Dude.
thing you could wear?
I said to Jay, I go, if that camera pans down here, if that camera pans down here, because I had Crocs and just sweatpants on and a nice suit.
Yeah.
I go, it's a Kumite in here.
Right.
Because it can't.
That's a
sure
warning.
enough, in his bloop bloops, there they are. I
Not.
would see that chair if it was a live thing, and I'd turn around and say, we're
Yeah.
doing it at your desk, Jay.
Yeah, it's tough. It's all about the bottoms.
It's
Everything
so
on the
tough.
tops is fine.
I
but the
haven't
bottoms-
been breathing properly for 15
There's
minutes.
like,
I'm really, really awkward right
I
now.
never know how to sit here. Like, you could go legs
Right, what do you
crossed.
do? Do you
go
go
like,
the
what
cross?
do you do? Do we lean away?
I know, it's tough.
Listen, we'll ponder it. We'll discuss it during the commercial break. Guys, you were awesome.